Hello and welcome to the big picture. The P5+1 nations, which had been agonizing for the last nearly 1.5 months in Geneva to reach an agreement with Iran over its nuclear program, has worked out what is being dubbed in some quarters as a historic agreement. The deal freezes or reverses progress at all of the Iran's key nuclear facilities, barring it from adding new centrifuges and capping, or in some cases eliminating stockpiles of uranium that is feared could be turned into fuel for a nuclear weapon. As part of the deal, Iran has also agreed to daily monitoring by international inspectors and has committed not to finish construction of a controversial heavy water reactor that could provide the country with a source of plutonium for a nuclear bomb. While there is a sense of elation in Iran, with some calling it the beginning of a new era for the country, Israel, its staunchest opponent, has dubbed the deal as a historic mistake, which will allow Iran to become a nuclear weapons nation. Meanwhile, reactions in the United States, which has led the talks, has been mixed. India, which has been watching the process almost silently, has welcomed the deal. We will discuss today how important this deal is and how difficult it would be to strike a comprehensive deal in the next 6 months and what this means to the global scenario. To discuss this, I have with me a panel of experts. Rajiv, Sikri, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs; Dr. G. Balachandran, Consulting Fellow at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis; and a nuclear expert, Professor A.K. Pasha, Director of Gulf Studies Program at the JNU; and Qamar Agha, Senior Journalist in West Asian and Middle East expert. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Sikri, I would like to come to you first. About 1.5 months back, the same panel, we were discussing the same thing when Geneva talks began, and there was skepticism how long it will go and whether there will be any kind of a agreement. Do you think this agreement, as some people are calling it, is a historic agreement?
Oh, certainly. I think that after more than 3 decades of a standoff between US and Iran, to have this kind of an agreement is a great breakthrough. Obviously, all the issues have not been resolved, and a lot more bargaining will be done, and there is still some trust deficit. But I think it's a very important first step, which will have far-reaching consequences. I think the fact that it could be reached, I think, quite quickly.
40 days, they've taken about 40-45 days.
Yeah, and even last time round, I think it could have been reached because the foreign ministers go there. Normally these deals you don't involve the foreign ministers of half a dozen countries.
Exactly.
So even the foreign ministers are present to meet repeatedly without a deal would have been very, very abnormal. It would have been a sign of failure. So first time round, there was expectation that it would be reached. But then, according to reports, the French demurred because they had pressure from both Saudi Arabia and Israel. But this time round, again, when the foreign ministers meet, this time if there had been no deal, then it would have been a case of saying, well, these people are just meeting for the heck of it.
Mr. Pasha, Mr. Sikri mentioned France. Even now, France has not wholeheartedly welcomed this deal. You think they're still facing some kind of a pressure from both Israel and Saudi Arabia, and what is the politics of France in this?
Well, the French did delay the process by at least 2 weeks. Otherwise, the deal would have been clinched about 10-12 days before. There is unexpectedly the issue of Agha heavy water plant where plutonium is made. This was their concern that if there is cap on the enrichment of uranium, the Iranians could go through the plutonium route to acquire nuclear capability. But other than that, the Israelis had been opposed to the very idea of enrichment of uranium, which France did take up the issue, and it was largely because of this Israeli-French objection that in the preamble of this accord, this was not mentioned. And the Iranians were content with just saying that this is inherent, ipso facto, the NPT provides them the right to enrich uranium, whether it is 3.5 or 5%, that is immaterial, but they have the sovereign right to enrich uranium. As far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, from the very beginning they were quite uneasy about this rapprochement after they listened to the United States for more than 30 years. You know, they encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade Iran, and a whole lot of problems in the region were at the behest of the United States to contain Iran, to roll back the revolution, and also to prevent the export of the revolution. But all that, I think, is history now. And these two regional powers, Israel and Saudi Arabia, are now beginning to reconcile that they may be friends in the future, and that they may have to live without the United States' open support. But that remains to be seen. But there is no doubt that there is this seismic geopolitical changes which are unfolding with this accord, and this will have a long-lasting impact on peace, security and stability in the region.
In the entire region. Dr. Balachandran, according to this deal which has been worked out, Iran can continue to enrich uranium below 5%. Is this something which ensures that they will not reach a stage where they could have nuclear weapons? Because Israel continues to say that, you know, allowing them to enrich below 5% also is enough for them.
One can't listen to Israel on this. Israel, as far as Israel is concerned, Iranians should not have anything. So that's out of question. Okay, so we shouldn't even pay attention to Israelis on this subject. But as far as Israel, look, the 5% is very normal. It's any for power reactor 3.5, 4.5 is normal. And it's quite difficult to go to 90. And in any case, the Iranians are undertaken not to go beyond 19.5%.
Right.
So now this is a damn good deal. And both for Iranians.
You were very skeptical too, 1.5 months back, whether this would be.
No, I was skeptical how they would get there. It's not so much a question of getting there. What would be the concession, relaxation of sanctions in return for that?
Right.
Even now, how they would get to the final stage, everybody knows that. How they, but fortunately, I think the Iranians have been very accommodating in this respect. They got the concessions, the relaxations have been not very substantial in the sense that they will get some of the money back. They have been allowed to export petrochemicals. They can get $4 billion out of the 1 million barrels. So it's very modest. It's a very modest one. But I suspect the Iranians have been more accommodating, and given that, there's no way they would have accepted either close down Iraq, completely bring it down, close down take out your, what do you call, the enrichment plant and all that. They would have never accepted that, and it's quite rightly so. It's not up to any other country to say what somebody else cannot have. We didn't accept for NPT because they said we'll decide who is a nuclear weapon state.
And Iran is an NPT signatory.
No. And we said, jump in the lake. I got a nuclear. I don't require your permission to have a nuclear bomb. Similarly, Iran said, I don't need your permission to have an enrichment. So I think it was a good deal for the Iranians. I'm hoping that in the 6-month interim period, they'll be able to come to the final solution in a reasonably fitful manner, because there's no question this helps everybody, both Iranians especially, and the West, and the general peace and security in that area.
What do you think, Qamar? Qamar, you think that Iran, by accepting, Dr. Balachandran says that Iran has been very accommodative in this. You think they have given up the ambition of having nuclear weapons?
I don't think they ever had this ambition. They knew they cannot make a bomb, you know, the whole world against them, including India, Russia, China, with whom they have maintained.
Constantly, last several years, they have been harangued saying that, you know,
everybody, you know, 10 years back.
And Israel continues to feel that.
10 years back, Iraq was having a nuclear weapon, you know. That was, I don't think, you know, they may be having plans, you know, initially, you know, in the beginning, you know, but later they must have realized they are very smart people, you know, they are not stupid. They knew that they cannot make a bomb. What they wanted, you know, they wanted to achieve this level of technology, perfection, 20. Now their next step would be and second thing, they wanted to remain in NPT. They never said we are walking out. Third thing, now the logical thing, you know, they will try and enter into join this nuclear supplier group, because they have nuclear, this uranium reserves with them, and the region is also having. So they will enter now into the business in this, you know, because that's why they wanted to remain in this. Third thing, you know, another important aspect, they wanted to have, they made a lot of sacrifice to achieve this, you know. Defiance, they know that, you know, because they tried to improve their ties with the United States during Clinton time. They couldn't get anything. They said the best thing, you know, to go to defiance, develop yourself, emerge as a power in the region, and then make a deal, you know, with them. This is what they did, you know. Now they have made it, you know. They made a sacrifice. They come back, you know, on the table, had a deal, you know, a very respectable deal.
You think there's a very respectable deal?
Very respectable, and I believe, you know, it's a done deal, you know. It's in the interest of the both. If the regime would have fallen in Syria and Afghanistan, you know, they didn't have, Americans would have not problem, you know, or stability would have come in Iraq, you know, they would have not signed. Americans would have not signed the deal, you know.
That's interesting.
So it's for the region also, it's good, as Ambassador Sikri has mentioned, you know, and for the Iran also, it is very good.
Mr. Sikri, you think the US, what motivated US to finally sign this deal? Because there are still pressures. We have seen in the last 24 hours, 36 hours after this deal was announced, there are still problems within the US Congress, there are differences still happening there. You think Obama will be able to carry this through? And what are the kind of challenges he will face?
I think for the United States, there was a realization that for the sake of stability in the region, they need to bring Iran on board. Because the levers or the elements of their strategy involving Saudi Arabia and so forth are not working. Saudi Arabia is a very fragile state, and in a long term.
What about Israel?
No, Israel also. See, Israel. Israel has upset Obama. I think it was very wrong on Mr. Netanyahu's part to openly snub him. So Obama may not have said anything, but he's getting his own back on the Israelis. And I think Mr. Obama personally also must be having somewhere at the back of his mind that he must have some legacy in foreign policy. He's got the Nobel Peace Prize. You know, this is a big thing, absolutely, for him. So I think that he will certainly go all out to ensure that this deal does not break up. I think that the Iranians are looking at it not just in nuclear terms, because as has been pointed out earlier, they never really wanted a nuclear weapon. They're not stupid. But now they have become a geopolitical player. And that leverage which they have got, that maneuverability, that is far more valuable than having a nuclear weapon with everyone. Now the pressure will be on countries like Israel, because Israel is shouting from the housetops and pretending that it doesn't have any nuclear weapon.
Right.
So all those things will come under greater scrutiny. And so if Iran is going to play a greater role in US strategy in the region, in the global affairs, then I think that naturally countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel get a little worried about it.
Mr. Pasha, you think that what kind of pressures will Obama face now? Because, you know, in fact, he has been, even 1.5 months back when we were discussing, though it was Russia which had pushed Iran into this kind of a situation. But now you think that Obama will be taking this credit, but how far his own Congress will allow him to take this credit?
See, from the very beginning, as soon as he came to power, the first part of his administration, he did call upon Iran for a peaceful settlement, negotiations, diplomacy. For various reasons, including Israel, this could not fructify. And since then, his one-point agenda focus has been improvement of the economy, the severe economic crisis with which the United States is going through. And I think that single-minded focus remains. And now that the deal has been clinched, for various reasons, including the transatlantic differences, the Europeans were not very enthusiastic about sanctions on Iran. In fact, now they are the ones who would benefit most immediately, the British and the EU companies, so on and so forth. But now the deal would also give Obama a handle for those who are clamoring for more sanctions if there is a violation from Iran, or if it proves recalcitrant for the eventual final deal. that look, Israel also is pulling its feet on the Arab-Israel issue, the Palestinian issue. So he can use this as a handle to in fact neutralize the threat from the lobby, Jewish lobby there, IPEC particularly.
The Jewish lobby seems to be hoping that this deal will not work in the next 6 months.
Yeah, but the geopolitical realities cannot be shaped from Tel Aviv. The American public has become conscious of where the stakes are and what are the... In fact, Netanyahu went out of the way to support Obama's rival, Mitt Romney, in the elections. And it should not be forgotten that Obama has a personal interest also to show that, the kind of peacemaker he is expected of.
As Mr. Sikri says, he has to justify the Nobel Peace Prize.
And he has been systematically working to it. And Syria was one very important show which he gave. And this is the second major achievement. And I'm sure the Iranians will give all the flexibility, all the necessary ingredients, because they have achieved two things. One is the long-standing recognition of the regime by the United States.
Yes.
Because since 79, there was no way the Americans had endorsed the legitimacy of the Islamic Republic. Now here is, after years of military threats and bombing and regime change and sanctions and what have you, now they are sitting, in fact it was the secret negotiation between Zarif and Kerry, which reports suggest that clinched the real issue, because it is more than the agreement. And I think they have agreed on broader aspects of normalization of relations between the two countries, because both of them are looking for normalization of relations, and this will impact the entire range of interests both have. And of course, the Iranians would be grateful to the Russians and the Chinese, who were steadfast in the entire pressure which Iran had to face. And the leadership and the Iranian people have paid a very heavy price to arrive at this juncture in their history.
Dr. Balachandran, how will this change the nuclear map of the world, or the nuclear nations' approach towards things, and those nations which are expecting to become nuclear or threatening to become nuclear?
Look, it's not that easy to become nuclear, okay? I mean, very few countries have in fact reactors. You need either reactor or enrichment. Not many countries have enrichment. Certainly not many have reactors. You can't hide a reactor. Enrichment plant these days you can hide. So it's very difficult for a country to go nuclear. Just say I go to nuclear. Secondly, either you have their own uranium, or if you don't have, you have to import. That's pretty difficult. And these days the energy regime is quite strict. So it's not that easy to become a nuclear weapon state. But it would certainly make anybody thinking of becoming a nuclear weapon state that it may not be worth, after all, to undergo all these sanctions and difficulties. So I don't think that's the danger of that happening. And in any case, even Iran now, they are going to ask for daily inspection.
Yes.
So there's no question of breakout, 5%. And I don't think, very interestingly, the Iranians, all the things they said they will do, commit themselves to do, about 60-70% they are already done it.
Okay.
So it's not as if they have taken on any new commitments except for one or two minor ones. So I don't think they will break any of their commitment to this agreement.
As Israel is hoping.
No, yeah, as Israelis can hope anything, that won't happen. The US Congress can pass, yes, they certainly can pass a legislation imposing other sanctions. But in any case...
But that threat is still there.
Even before that becomes, it has to be signed by the president.
Right.
You can always veto it.
Right.
And thirdly, most US laws have a clause saying the president can waive the sanctions if he certifies that it is in the national security interest. Thirdly, the only sanctions that are really biting are the oil sanctions of the European Union, the SWIFT network, banking network, and the European ban on insurance.
Right.
Now, if those are removed, the unilateral US sanctions are not that severe.
Are not going to affect them as much.
As much as the oil says, okay. So I think by and large, I expect the Iranians will. The only trouble, as I told you, is at the last round, which is the final thing. When will the full oil and banking sanctions will be removed? That will be the breaking point, because unless they are sure that IAEA has said they don't have any undeclared peaceful nuclear activities, they say, look, we cannot remove it.
Okay.
But that will take time.
How long do you think it will take for the IAEA to come out with this?
It depends. Now they have said
in this 6 months period which they have now, you think
it could be done, because they are going to set up a joint commission, the P5+1 and IAEA, to work out the modalities.
Right.
Like in in Syria, normally the chemical weapons are not removed in 6 months. It takes long time. Russia is not still, but they said we'll make it before the middle of next year. So they took extraordinary efforts. So I presume if the IAEA and the IAEA Board of Governors agree, and the Iranians are agreeable, they can probably do it within, if not within 6 months, certainly 1 or 1.5 years, to prove, just like they have done for a number of other countries, that all Iran's nuclear activities are
safe.
Not only peaceful, there's no undeclared nuclear activity and there's no diversion. That should satisfy. I think they can do it. And perhaps India can be of assistance, because they are going to form a joint commission with IAEA.
Where India will be a...
Yes. And IAEA, India can play a very effective role in seeing that IAEA does the job in a very effective and expeditious manner.
Okay. Qamar, India, I was coming to that. How do you see India looking at all these things? Do you think India will now at least take some, proactive step to involve itself?
You see, India is maintaining very good ties with Iran.
Yes.
Historical and call it, civilizational ties. We never had a political ties with them, even during the Shah time or after that, So therefore, now it's a very important partner, India's partner. India maintains relation even despite the American pressure. Continue to import oil. Then India would like to play, I think, should play a major role in Iran. The reason is that if India is not there, then they're giving most of their contracts, most of the things to China. China would come. China is already there, And second thing, the Iranian wants India to play greater role in that country, Not only that, I think this is not only Iran, there is Iraq also, Syria also, all these countries, Lebanon, all 4 countries, they call it arc of civilization, themselves,
Yeah.
So this arc, they want India to play a greater role, The foreign minister was there in Iraq also, recently in Iran, and then, our position in Syria, because these countries, who are basically, or the regimes and countries and the people, they are totally opposed to militancy. They don't want militancy. They want to contain it. Then these are the countries, which India has always helped Iraq, for that matter, in developmental efforts, or in Iran also, the railway, pipelines, opening.
Yeah. Mr. Sikri, pipelines, he was mentioning about pipelines. How will this deal help India-Iran relations? And also, see, how will India deal with, say, Saudi Arabia and Israel, vis-a-vis Iran now? Or how should it deal?
Well, the pipeline, I think it's still a bit far away. And I understand that the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran is coming, or is here already. And he will try today.
Yes.
And so they will try and persuade India to be part of the IPI project. I think we should keep the doors open, because there is no point in blindly following the Americans and their extremist postures. They wanted us to take extremist postures vis-a-vis Myanmar. Now Myanmar has opened up; they're doing business. So we should never put ourselves in a corner. As far as Israel and Saudi Arabia are concerned, I think that we have managed to have good relations with all 3: Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. And that will continue. I think
but
we understand.
This deal will not come in the way of that.
No, of course not. I don't think that is an issue. The issues that we have with the other countries, in fact, we should be trying to see how we can bring all of them together, because we are probably uniquely placed in that we have good relations with the Arabs, Israel, and Iran.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that our diplomacy has not been very active in
We have
the
not
last
been
few.
proactive.
No.
in utilizing this advantage?
No, we have not been. We have just been a little defensive, little
Diffident
afraid, diffident. I think that we need to get out of that, because now a new picture is emerging and we must be alert to the openings and the possibilities that may come our way.
Professor Pasha, you earlier said these are seismic changes actually. So how will these seismic changes affect India and the neighborhood, our dealings with Pakistan or Afghanistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, number one, Iran is important for us as far as Afghanistan is concerned, in the backdrop of NATO withdrawal next year scheduled by middle. Number one. Number two, the stability and peace in Syria also is linked to what Iran can and should do in Geneva too. And the larger question of the Arab-Israel issue also is important, because what Iran has done and what it can do in terms of support or withdrawal to Hezbollah and Hamas.
Right.
So Iran is a player in all of these three major theaters, including Iraq.
Right.
Because the Cold War between Saudi Arabia and Iran is being fought in Iraq. The bomb blasts, the sectarian clashes, they are not genuinely domestic, but it has regional ramifications. But my only concern is Saudi Arabia cannot be ignored. What they have said and what position they have taken on Syria, on Iran, the intelligence chief Bandar, who went to Moscow to persuade the Russians on this issue, and the earlier indication of that was that they acquired Chinese intercontinental ballistic missiles when the Iran-Iraq war took place. Now my concern is they are convinced that Iran wants to become a nuclear power.
Saudi Arabia,
the Saudis.
Just like Israel, Saudi is also convinced.
Yeah, because they feel that given its...
So you think India has a role to play in convincing Saudi Arabia that it's not the case?
No, the Saudi-Pakistani nuclear ties may be in the offing.
Oh.
Because the Saudis look upon Pakistan's nuclear capability as not just for Pakistan's national security, but also as an extension for the House of Saud to be in place, because the American equivalent of support they feel is uncertain. It is withdrawing from the region. So they look upon Pakistan as a
nuclear. It's very interesting and serious. Maybe that's a topic for discussion, a separate discussion in fact. Very quickly, Mr. Sikri, there'll be a lot of people who will be hoping that this deal will also mean that the oil prices will come down. Do you think that will be one of the impacts?
I think it will certainly help in calming the oil prices, and that is all to the good.
But not to the extent you expect. Not maybe $5-6. Now you don't expect to come to 70 and 80.
Whatever the price comes down, I think we should be.
It has already come down, I think, by $4.
Okay. I think on that note, we need to end on that positive note, actually, on a very personal, as far as India is concerned, that if the oil prices come down, all of us should be happy about it. But there are a lot of other issues which we'll have to wait and watch. There's 6 months time gap. How this will be worked out finally and a comprehensive deal can be struck, we'll wait and watch. Thanks to all my guests, Professor A.K. Pasha, Rajiv Sikri, Dr. Balachandran and Qamar Agha. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.